Why did they bring me here?
Spoiler warning. 7 significant questions concerning the Force and Midi-Chlorians are brought up by Emperor Sheev Palpatine's Star Wars, the Bad Batch cloning operations conducted inside the Mount Tantiss laboratory on Wayland. The second season of the Bad Batch concluded abruptly, with Omega and Crosshair being held captive and subjected to experiments at the Mount Tantiss cloning facility. More of these experiments were shown in the Season 3 premiere, which also included Crosshair, Omega, and their new lurca hound, Batcher, making a risky getaway. It looks like the remainder of the season will center on clone Force 99's escape from Dr. Royce Hemlock following the setup. Palpatine's fixation with living forever and his cloning operation were brought to light in Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. But the movie offered no more explanation than, somehow, Palpatine returned. By building on Project Necromancer, the Bad Batch is now making up for this inadequate response. The fact that Omega's blood does not reject midi-chlorians like other clones is one of the major revelations.
It's Omega.
And massive information drops from the first 3 episodes. Still unknown, though, are many of the workings of Project Necromancer and its consequences for the nature of the Force.
Let's get out of here? Yeah, I'm on it.
Subscribe to Movie Spy for more twist videos. Does DNA degrade like midi-chlorians? Cells are given life by midi-chlorians. Dr. Emery Carr informs Dr. Hemlock at the conclusion of Episode 3 that Omega's blood sample supported a positive M-count transfer with no degradation from the specimen. The question of whether midi-chlorians deteriorate over time like regular cells is raised by this. This appears to have a canonical precedent. The reason behind this is unknown, but Chiss Skywalkers, Chiss girls who use the Force to maneuver ships, usually stop being sensitive to the Force around the age of 14. This would explain why, in contrast to the other clones, Omega has kept midi-chlorians. Other clones undergo a quick aging process. She was permitted to age normally. It's probable that those midi-chlorians are harder to replace at greater levels as they die off throughout the quick aging process. Was Omega's DNA required by the Kaminoans for midi-chlorians? Omega's blood could accept midi-chlorians, as Nala Se already knew. The Bad Batch previously claimed that the purpose of creating Omega was to try to save Jango Fett's DNA. But Nala Se's warnings to Omega made it obvious that she was aware that Omega could receive midi-chlorians via blood transfusions.
Omega, listen carefully.
Since she destroyed Omega's samples, she probably knew this for a long time and wasn't able to find out through conducting tests for the Empire. It appears that Nala Se either discovered this or maybe made it. It's probable that the Kaminoans required Omega's DNA for his midi-chlorians in addition to Jango's genetic coding. Life exists because of the midi-chlorians. They're living things. The midi-chlorians must be dead as well if the body they are removing them from is deceased. After all, taking blood or organs from a deceased person in a hospital is only permitted for a very short period of time, let alone one who has been beheaded in combat. The situation with midi-chlorians in a person's blood is probably the same. Is Omega allowed to use the Force? It's possible that Omega and midi-chlorians are more related than other clones. The only known individual in the canon of Star Wars whose blood can accept a successful midi-chlorian transfer is Omega. Although midi-chlorians don't directly cause Force sensitivity, they do facilitate its access. On the other hand, the blood's midi-chlorians are few. Blood isn't a midi-chlorian-rich resource, yet it is used to measure the amount of midi-chlorians in a person's cells because it is simple to perform. It is now understood that, as a result, while someone's midi-chlorian count may be raised, Force sensitivity cannot. Omega, though, might be different considering how seriously Dr. Hemlock is taking the successful transfer. For most people, the transfer is ineffective. Omega may be inherently compatible with midi-chlorians, possibly even possessing a higher count than most clones, given that her blood responded so well to the extra midi-chlorians. She could be able to use Force if this is the case. In Project Necromancer, why are midi-chromian counts so crucial if anyone can be trained to use the Force? Dr. Hemlock was prepared to let Omega to go free in order to preserve her life and her blood. Ahsoka disclosed that training might increase a person's sensitivity to the Force. However, Palpatine's clone deteriorated because it lacked the strength to contain his essence. Preventing that degeneration is the entire purpose of injecting the clones into midi-chlorians and testing their blood to see if they can accept the transfer. Clones are living things, even though they were raised in a lab. They can presumably receive the same training in the Force as everyone else. However, the Bad Batch makes it apparent that Project Necromancer requires a clone with high midi-chlorian levels. This is still not explained by Star Wars. What sets Omega apart from the other clones? Compared to other clones, Omega is more compatible with midi-chlorians. Clones have been shown to have poor midi-chlorian retention, but Omega can do so without any problems. In Season 3, the Bad Batch will have to clarify this and address the issue of whether or not this distinguishes her as a special clone deserving of Nala Se's care. Was Jango Fett sensitive to Force? It's possible that Jango Fett's cells worked well with midi-chlorians. Is the Force sensitive Boba Fett? Omega's DNA may be more similar to Jango Fett's than Boba Fett's. Another Generation 1 clone who was permitted to age naturally is Boba Fett. Moreover, he is male, just as Jango is, in contrast to Omega, who is female. Because of this, his DNA may even be more similar to Jango's original DNA than Omega's. Boba Fett probably has Force sensitivity as well, if Jango Fett has a secret Force sensitivity. When further information on Project Necromancer and M-Counts becomes available in Season 3 of The Bad Batch, this is probably a question that will be addressed.